All right, let's dive into one of the most incredible invention stories ever told. I'm talking, of course, about the story of the computer.
I mean, think about it for a second. How on earth did we go from a machine that filled an entire room to the supercomputers that we all carry around in our pockets today? Well, that's exactly the question we're going to unpack.
So here's our roadmap. We're going to start in the age of giants, then watch the shrinking revolution unfold. After that, we'll see how we put a computer on a chip, how we connected the world, and finally, we'll ask the big question: what comes next?
Okay, let's kick things off. Our story begins back in the 1940s, in what you could truly call an age of giants, and I mean that literally. These first computers were just massive.
Get this number in your head, 18,000. Just let that sink in for a moment. That's how many delicate, fragile glass vacuum tubes it took to power the very first all-electronic computer.
And that machine had a name, ENIAC. It was built at the University of Pennsylvania, and it was an absolute beast. It was designed for incredibly complex calculations, but it needed a crazy amount of space and power just to run.
So what was inside one of these things? Well, you had those fragile vacuum tubes acting as the brains, and they generated a ton of heat. For memory, you had a huge magnetic drum. And to tell it what to do, you had to physically feed it stacks of punch cards. All of that work for processing speeds measured in milliseconds, which, by today's standards, is an absolute eternity.
Look, these giant machines were impressive, no doubt, but they were totally impractical. They were huge, unreliable, and constantly overheating. Clearly, something had to give. And it did. That change sparked a revolution.
And here it is, the breakthrough. The vacuum tube was replaced by the transistor. The difference is just night and day. We went from a big, fragile, power-guzzling glass bulb to a tiny, solid-state, and incredibly efficient little switch. This single invention is what blew the doors open for smaller, faster computing.
But the innovation didn't stop there. Not even close. The next massive leap forward was the integrated circuit, or IC. A couple of brilliant guys, Jack Kilby and Robert Noyce, figured out how to pack multiple transistors onto a single, tiny silicon chip. This wasn't just about shrinking the computer anymore. This was about making it exponentially more powerful.
And you can see just how fast things were moving. From 59 to 65, the second generation was all about the transistor. Then, the third generation, from 65 to 71, was defined by that integrated circuit. And then, starting in 1971, the fourth generation arrived with an invention that completely changed the game.
This was the era of the microprocessor. This is where engineers did the seemingly impossible. They managed to put all the essential parts of a computer onto one single, tiny chip.
The very first one you could actually buy was the Intel 404. Its modern descendants look something like this. The concept itself was revolutionary, putting a computer's entire central processing unit, its brain, onto a single chip. This was the key that unlocked the personal computer.
And the microprocessor just set off an explosion of innovation. Suddenly, the idea of having a computer in your own home wasn't science fiction anymore. And with it came this incredible wave of firsts. The first video games like Space War, the first user-friendly web browsers, and yeah, even the first computer virus, a program ominously named Creeper.
So as the hardware got more and more complex, it needed some really sophisticated software to manage everything. This led to the creation of the operating system, or OS. Fun fact, the very first one was called GMOS, as in General Motors OS, which just goes to show you how different industries were all pushing this innovation forward.
All right, so computers are getting smaller, they're getting more powerful. What's the next logical step? Well, of course, it's connecting them all together. This is the story of how the digital world became a connected one.
The story of the internet really starts with ARPANET. This was a US military project, a network designed from the ground up to be decentralized and tough enough to survive a major attack. It ended up becoming the direct ancestor of the global network we all use every single day.
But a network isn't very useful if you can't find anything on it. So this led to a series of other crucial firsts. We got the first search engine, called Archie, the first internet service provider, Telenet, and the very first web browser, which had the perfect name, World Wide Web. These were the fundamental building blocks of our entire digital world.
And to really appreciate what a connected world means, just remember where we started. Before networks, getting information into a computer meant using physical punch cards like this, an invention by Herman Hollerith. We went from punching holes in paper to accessing a global network of information in just a few short decades. It's a truly mind-boggling leap.
And that brings us right up to the modern era, the fifth generation of computers. It's an era that started around 1980 and is still going on today. And it's defined by a single, powerful new goal.
The technology driving this generation is called ULSI, or ultra-large-scale integration. Basically, that just means we're cramming millions and now billions of components onto a single chip. But the real revolution here isn't just the hardware, it's the goal.
And that goal, the major talking point, is artificial intelligence. The entire focus of modern computing has shifted. It's now about creating machines that can think, learn, and reason. So, what does that actually mean? It means building computers that you can talk to in your own language. It means creating systems that can learn from new information and organize themselves without any human intervention. This is the cutting edge, and we are living right in the middle of it.
Which leaves us with one final fascinating question. We know this fifth generation is defined by AI. So as we look to the horizon, what technology, what big idea is going to define the sixth? Thanks for joining me on this journey.